this video, I'm going to be buying, building, and revealing hidden details in the biggest LEGO Star Wars sets of all time. And I'm going to be trying to find out if these sets are hype or if they're bricked. Now with that said, LEGO. LEGO has come out with a lot of big sets, but none of them are as cool as the Star Wars ones. Like this ship that LEGO just dropped, the Venator class Star Destroyer. So let's build. Now I gotta admit, LEGO killed it with this thing. The spaceship feels massive for 5,000 pieces and is crazy detailed. Like, I'll be honest, these engines don't even look like LEGO, which shows how scary accurate it is. It also has some stickered pieces of these Republic logos and some other details. It also comes with a bunch of detailing on the side of it, which is called greebling, which is basically this made-up LEGO term for really cool details that do absolutely nothing. And my favorite detail has to be the hangar bay section, which has this little micro-scale gunship, which is a small version of the gunship we're gonna look at in a couple minutes. Now I thought, you know what would be really cool? If I set up an entire clone army under that thing. That has to look epic, right? So I broke out my clone army and set them up under the Venator, and my gosh, does this look epic. That's gotta be at least $1,000 worth of plastic right there. So even though this set costs $700, I'm gonna say it's hyped. Like I said though, up next is the UCS Republic gunship, a $400 set, and I've got to say this had to be the most fun build of any Star Wars ship I've done. Most of these sets are kind of gray and collect a lot of dust, but this one is white and red, and it also is probably the most unique design of any of these because of how many curves it has. And also it has the same cockpit piece as a Jedi Starfighter. And also has some bubble turrets which were in the movie and come off kind of easily. I also think they masterfully executed the wingspan of the ship, and even the twin engines up top are top notch. It also has like 3,000 pieces, which is great, but don't get me started on the minifigures. I'd still say the set is pretty hype. One of these big sets with great underrated minifigures is the Mos Eisley Cantina, which is based on that scene from Star Wars where all these cursed looking guys are at the bar. It also costs like $400, which would probably be enough for me to buy an entire water park. But LEGO decided to make this thing into a set. It's loaded with minifigures, including some pretty disturbing aliens, like this guy who is that stupid Imperial spy from the LEGO games that would keep opping on you when you were trying to escape. You also, of course, got your boys Han and Greedo. Han shot first, by the way. Momo Nadin has this goofy head, and he's talking with some other aliens at this side build of a Jawa shop. You also get a minifigure scale wet bar with all the alcoholism you can dream of. There are also some sand troopers and this creature they ride called a dewback, but one of my favorite figures in the set has to be Satan. Actually, I changed my mind. It's this guy with a butt on his chin. But really, this is a super cool Star Wars set and has a lot of neat features, including this speeder and these other weird things. So I'm gonna say this set's also hype, which I mean, for $400, it honestly better be. This next one is the AT-AT Walker, and also my dog, who I named Clanker. This was a painful build because the legs kept breaking, and it had about 9 figures, which isn't exactly enough to load the 6,800 piece beast, so I got some snowtroopers to load up. And speaking of, this set has 42 seats in it, so you can comfortably sit close to 90 minifigures. You heard that right, 90. Also, this leg mechanism is wild. You have to use a screwdriver to move the legs, and I still have zero clue how this thing is currently standing. The coolest feature, in my opinion, is you can load these little speeder bikes from this rack, and they just drop down, and then just to assume whoever drops just survives the impact. Oh, also Luke's dangling from the bottom of the set again. Good job, bro. So for $850, is this set hype? Yes, but building the leg sucks. Now I'm gonna try to get a bit closer to the ground because we're gonna be checking out the Luke Skywalker collection. This lightsaber, which fits in my hand well and does zero things other than look pretty. Oh, and also did I mention it costs about $180. We also got Luke Skywalker's helmet, which looks okay, not great, also bricked. Then we got Luke Skywalker's land speeder, which is a WC-3PO minifigure, and some cool detailing on it. Like on one of the engine things, it has this really cool detailing. It's also 1,500 pieces and comes with this absurdly large windshield piece, which would look dumb on anything else in literally every context. But for $240, I'm gonna say it's probably not worth it unless Luke Skywalker is your man crush, so it's bricked to me. Dang, Luke's gotta stop racking up these L's. And he has one more shot because this next set is his X-Wing Starfighter. Now you might already know my answer to this because I already did a video about how excited I was to get this set, and it did not disappoint. It's obviously based off of his iconic fighter from the original trilogy and now the sequel trilogy for some reason, and this set is legit. It is a feature to twist this knob and then the wings would just open up, but one thing I honestly don't get about it is that they put a minifigure sized R2-D2 in a not minifigure sized build. I mean, look how well Luke is, let's be honest. Other than that, it's pretty legit. Everything everything else about it I love. So I'm gonna say this set is hype. And this next one I bought a while ago, and it's the UCS Star Destroyer set. And this thing is massive. With somehow only 4,700 pieces, they created one of the largest Lego sets ever, based purely on the space it takes up on my shelf. My issue is when you go to carry it, it's very fragile, and if any issues happen inside of it when it breaks, there's nothing you can do. Which is why I threw it in my pool. So was it hyper bricked? I'm gonna say probably bricked, because holding that thing gave me actual nightmares, and I will never forget that. Now our next set is a spaceship, and this is a spaceship that crashed into a bigger spaceship, causing that big spaceship to crash into the biggest spaceship of all time and then blew it up. More simply, it's an A-Wing, and it's called that because it's shaped like the letter A. And I actually like this one because it has a place to put Florida Man in it, so he could kamikaze into something. And honestly, it's just neat looking with the white and maroon contrast, and also has a ton of functionality with the guns. This set is definitely hyped for 200 bucks. But speaking of exploded ships, this is the Razor Crest, which is the Mandalorian ship in the Mandalorian. It costs like $600 and comes with Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, a Blue Man, and a pig named Squeal. The build was also low-key really fun and took about 15 hours to build, but we're just gonna ignore that because it has a whole cockpit where you can fit in the boys and Baby Yoda. The set also has a bed, weapons rack, carbon freezing chamber with frozen bodies, and my favorite is the opening that you leave in the back and allows this goofy creature called a blurg to walk on into the ship. Also, this thing is way too top heavy because of the huge engines up top, which look insane, and I'm gonna say 6,000 pieces for $600 is kinda hype. And now this next $200 set is also the most popular Star Wars character of all time, except for maybe Darth Vader. It's R2 freaking D2. This was a wild set to build, and he comes strapped. He has this little shocky thing, a lightsaber, a tiny hand, and an antenna that pops out of his head. He also got that third leg that's poking out of the bottom of himself, and he looks like an absolute stud. Beautiful droid, most hype set, for real. He also has some friends like BB-8, D-O, and a Porg, but I don't want to talk about them because they're all sequel sets, so instantly bricked. Except for Baby Yoda and BD-1, BD has a whole stim pack system and these movable legs and everything, and he's really hyped, and so is Baby Yoda. So both of them can vibe with R2-D2. Now this next Lego set may be the best Lego Star Wars set of all time, and it's the Millennium Falcon. It's the ship that Han Solo and Chewbacca fly around and costs $850. And it has some decent minifigures, but really it has the coolest Lego build maybe I've ever seen. Barely fits on this table. If you compare this build to the actual ship, you can tell it's Lego pretty much, but if you put it in a movie, it would feel completely in place there because it just looks that good. You get the drop-down turret, a cockpit, and a bunch of interior space to play hologram chess and hide under the floorboards. You also have the option to swap the radar dish out to become the sequels version, but nobody really wants to do this version, let's be honest. What I like most about this thing is how you could just drop down the ramp and make it look like everyone's running into it to take off, because that was something you could never really do with the regular playsets. So other than R2-D2, this set may be most hype. A couple years ago, Lego decided it would be a good idea to make a toy that you could just put on a shelf and look at and does nothing. And these are the helmet sets. And there are a bunch, so here's a speed run. Boba Fett, hype. Stormtrooper, bricked. TIE Fighter Pilot, hype. Scout Trooper, hype. Darth Vader, or as the box says, Dark Vader, bricked. The Mandalorian, hype. Dark Trooper is extremely bricked for $70. Princess Leia is hype. Commander Cody is hype. And Captain Rex is most hype out of all of them, and you cannot tell me otherwise. The reason you'd get these is because they would fit nice with other sets that are bigger, and I think they just help complement them and make those other sets look cooler. Now let's move on to a bit more of an exciting playset. Next up is that moon.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
It's the Death Star, and this has to be one of the most play feature packed Lego sets of all time. So after dropping it and rebuilding it, I was able to take a full tour and see everything inside. The top half has a little droid workshop with a control under the chair that you sit on that can move around Darth Vader's TIE Fighter in the hangar bay, and in there there's also a little elevator to go down to the room below it with a cool claw mech, and there are even these doors in the hangar that lead to this laser room, which is controlled by a mechanism above the laser to raise and lower that super laser. As you can tell, many of the rooms in this are very connected. And did I mention upstairs there's this boring meeting room to have a boring office where people can make boring decisions like which planet to blow up, and you could also determine, you know, who to send to Death Star jail, but you can escape that Death Star jail using the garbage chute unless it crushes you. The set's also loaded with a tractor beam, giant cannons, and a final duel room for some sick fights. And that all came in a $500 set with a load of minifigures, so I'd have to say this set is hype. Now these next sets are more Star Wars ones for adults, and Lego's made a bunch of them. The Bespin duel with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader to have their epic fight. Darth Vader's meditation chamber, which has a little claw that opens and closes. The probe droid, which is kind of always breaking, but looks epic. You also got the Death Star trench run with a mini X-Wing and a lot more greebling. And then the Dagobah Jedi training with a dirty droid, Yoda, and Luke, where they're doing some force lifting. And then one of my favorites is the trash compactor diorama, which also crams everyone in. And you also get Palpatine's throne room, which is the best one because it has this big epic window, which is really sick looking. Then of course you also have the Endor speeder chase and the Executor Star Destroyer. And the thing I like about this one is when you remove a section, you can see all these studs which represent the different bounty hunters that were inside the ship. So I'm gonna go ahead and say all these sets are hype, not one is bad. And lastly, we're going to be doing the most mega build of all time, Chewbacca. Now there's a lot of debate on if this set is bricked or hyped, and I'm gonna have to build it to see what happens, but first I have to cop it. So I went to the Lego store and conveniently nobody bought it. So I ended up copying it and bringing it home. So get ready for the 10-second build montage. Alright, let's take a look. Now it has legs, arms, and torsos covered in these reddish brown pieces which are supposed to represent hair, and it actually doesn't look awful, especially the feet. And I'll go even as far as to say is the bowcaster and the bandolier look really, really cool. But the face, bruh, what is that? Okay, I'll be objective here, but I feel bad for Lego because they have to make a really impossible decision because you cannot make anything in Lego look like a human face. And don't talk to me about that Darth Maul bust, that does not look real. So I'm gonna guess this is probably the best they could have done, but it still feels so cursed and unnatural. So I'm gonna say the set has to be bricked. Either way, I wanna know which one was your favorite. Also, if you wanna watch one of these other videos, you can too. I'll see you all in the next one. Remember to peace out and stay awesome.